2-minute warning. Guys, start making your way back to the stage.
I'll see y'all in a little bit.
Don, how are you?
Yeah. Oh, happy birthday! Happy birthday! That means we're fair and balanced, but also very fucking cool.
Mr. Skinner to the office, Mr. Skinner.
Look down.
Oh yeah, you don't like Star Wars. What is your thing with Star Wars? I never grew up with it. So I would watch it, I'm just like, okay. And the first time I really saw a movie in its entirety were the prequels. But here's the thing, I love new Star Wars. Oh yeah, the new Force Awakens. Permanently so famous. It's just going back, I still have the connection to the original. Yeah, I hear you. So, here, I told people I'm like, because I like that reaction. But the reality is, I have no strong feelings for the old movies. Right.
You gotta get into his troll hole.
The new ones are great, you can troll everybody. Yep. Well, I do. Social justice, what? Pretty much. You're all Nazis. Star Wars stands for SJW. Yeah. First of all, who is this guy talking to Cage that is sitting in my seat? Oh, that's
Julie. We got everybody in a row.
I kick him in the seat.
Okay. Cast to the stage, cast to the stage.
Whoa!
Hey, what is that?
Like in Sabrina.
Josh, turn down the... Turn down 1 and 2 for half a second.
Yeah. Boys, Boys, Boys by Lady Gaga.
Well, turn everything back to normal. That did nothing.
Happened a long time ago. You never read the script.
All right, ready?
Whenever you say that, Darth.
Go.
We return to the scene in the Republican Council Cruiser's midbay. A staff of clones and one alien doctor attend to Amidala. She shoos them like flies when they get too close to her face.
So that was a Sith.
Master Yoda, hood up, nods curtly.
I can't believe they're real.
Patience of the dark side is. For epochs it may slumber, until completely unprepared we become.
Were you alive the last time?
Yoda nods.
After the last war, they lingered for a few centuries, surviving the shadows. Defeating the final Dark Lord was, and lost to time, the location of Korriban. Disturbing this is, a meeting with the Council on the range.
But he's surely dead now. Should I worry?
Yoda locks eyes with her from beneath his hood. He walks out of the room. Amidala shakes it off. She spies someone off to the side. Her mood brightens. The clone nurses are examining Ben's neck at a table not far off.
Jedi Kenobi, is it?
He gags a bit and pushes the clone away.
I'm not a master. Oh, you said it correctly. Yes, Madam President?
Please, call me Tira.
I really shouldn't. Protocol? It's a beautiful name, though.
And yours is? So I remember never to call you by it?
Ben, Madam President.
Ben. I like it.
Ben smiles, but then gets uncomfortable. He stands.
Well, best be off. We have a celebration to attend, after all.
Yes, I should get into character.
Just remember not to get into character as the President.
Hmm? Oh, yes, Beta Protocol. Corday will be pleased. She loves playing president.
Stay nearby. I'll have my senses open. We'll keep you safe, as always.
Ben gets to the doorway. It slides open.
Oh, and Jedi Kenobi?
He pauses.
Yes?
If we do get some free time between pomp and circumstance, I'd very much like to properly thank you.
Thank me?
For saving my life?
Ben gets a very English blush going, nods curtly, and leaves. We wipe to the planet Coruscant. Thick Dubai gone unchecked for 5,000 years. Galactic City covers every inch of Coruscant's surface, extending up to the edge of its breathable atmosphere and down to the edge of the planet's mantle. Floating buildings, skyhooks, and interweaving traffic of all kinds fill the skies. Didi's Cafe is a very Earth-like diner in the Cocoa district of Coruscant. Right now, due to the parade, it is empty apart from 2 Jedi apprentices at a table. Didi, the octopus-like proprietor of the cafe, puts 2 plates and 2 mugs onto a short order counter at the same time. 4 clones in waiter garb each take an item and bring it to the apprentices.
They really micromanage you when the cafe is empty.
Yeah, I wish we were on parade duty.
Nights only, man. Enjoy the time off from training. This is decaf calf, right?
The waiter nods. A silhouette through the door's window moves. Maul, cloaked and hooded, opens the door with a ding.
Do we get a discount for being Jedi?
The first apprentice notices Maul. The second one, seeing the first face, looks to the door, mouth full. Some tea cake falls from his mouth. A clone waiter walks up to Maul.
You may sit where you like, sir. May I interest you in a calf?
Maul ignites his lightsaber. The Jedi lift theirs with little confidence. The blinds crush out, windows shatter, accompanied by the sounds of a fast lightsaber duel. Ah! Meanwhile, across town, a fanfare plays. The largest parade you can imagine floats down the upper streets of the city of Coruscant, the capital planet of the Republic. We can see down into Galactic City that the Millennial Parade winds up several levels as well as back. The center float is the tallest, a massive and ornate behemoth of colorful blocking and precious metal. At the center, dwarfed, sits a small throne. On the center float, small airspeeders weave about the primary float as the people on the rooftops wave and toss confetti. At its center, Corday, dressed as the president. The resemblance is uncanny. To her side, crouches a handmaiden in a brown burqa. She pours a blue, milky substance into a glass on a table of the yacht. She leaves Corday's vicinity, presumably to refill the pitcher. We draw closer until we see she is Amidala. She touches something like a Bluetooth in her ear.
3PO,
The cab driver was very rude to me. He almost wouldn't even stop.
did you find something?
There's something I believe you will be interested in, Madam President, but you're not supposed to leave the parade.
Just tell me how to get there.
She sets the picture on the nearest surface. She walks in a deliberately casual manner to R2, seated in a running airspeeder at the back of the float. And as your guard emerges from the shadows where the speeder had just been, the guard removes her mask, revealing Captain Whitesun.
I can't wait until the elections.
She tosses off her helmet, armor, mask, and cloak so that she, too, is not recognizably royal. She hops onto a speeder bike and takes off in pursuit. We wipe to the back at Dee Dee's Cafe. Maul takes a seat in the darkest booth of the diner. Everything between the front door and the booth is a wreck, including the Jedi's bodies, whose legs peek from behind the register's counter. Clones pull the bodies out and clean up the mess. A shaking tentacle places a rattling coffee cup onto the counter. Maul brushes a strewn, still smoking hand from the table at his booth with a boot, and he puts his feet up. On a screen in a corner, the parade continues. A clone waiter brings Maul a calf. Maul stares at the parade in disgust.
And how will you repay?
Maul waves a hand, still focused on the screen.
I don't have to pay. Master will cover it.
The waiter stands up rigidly.
Firmware updating.
Master will cover it.
Maul stands. He inspects the clones. He smiles. He takes out his slicer. At the center of Galactic City, the Jedi Temple at its base, in the shadows, is a huge ziggurat it began as, but higher. 5 spires tower into the daylight of the city. The Council Chambers is the peak of the silver spire that rises from the center. Inside the temple, the Council Chambers is a circular room with window walls. Circumscribing it stand 12 of what at first glance appear to be holograms. Closer, we see they do not flicker, they do not waver, and they are the wrong color. They are Force ghosts, and they make up the entire Shimmer Council, as it is sometimes called. A proud Yoda stands in the middle, facing a human spirit with long hair and a beard called Qui-Gon Jinn.
We felt something amiss, Yoda. That's why we sent the greatest living Jedi.
A little foreknowledge would have been helpful.
He was dispatched, was he not?
Yes, but
Then we will stay vigilant. But the disturbance feels settled for now.
A Torguda spirit, Shakti, steps forward, her striped tentacles furrow.
Yes, the matter of your ascension is much more pressing.
Yoda's face tenses.
Don't look so shocked, Yoda. This is several centuries overdue.
but now, return the Sith hand. The prophecy of the pivot.
Kai Adimundi, a Saurian spirit with a long white goatee and an elongated rippled head, scoffs.
The pivot? Really, Yoda? I expect more from you. Whom is it you believe will bring balance to the Force? Yourself?
Keep your tone.
I apologize. But hubris is one of the signs, Qui-Gon. You know as well as I do.
Believe it to be myself? No, I do not. But with the return of the Sith, so comes the pivot. Clear the prophecy is.
Do you know how many prophecies there are, Master Yoda? I do. I made many of them. I wish I had not. Their interpretation is a lost art.
Shakti raises her arms. The room turns her way.
The reason for this session is Master Yoda's power level, which fast approaches its Rubicon. I would rather not be forced to send a knight after one of our greatest.
Nor would a knight enjoy being sent, I wager.
Agreed. There will always be reasons. You know the rules, Yoda, and why they exist. That puppet was no Sith, but you may yet be if you cling to your life, position, and the control they bring.
You maintain balance impressively long, but fear of ascension grows and lingering. Kenobi's impatience grows too. He is long overdue for Master.
To Master he will ascend when ready he is.
How can he when you will not take your place on this council?
Stop you that did not.
Qui-Gon smiles.
I am not Obi-Wan Kenobi. he will not be ready until you move on.
Another ghost, to the edge of the half circle, steps forward. All eyes turn to him. Mace Windu is a commanding presence, bald, with fire in his eyes and a dampened fury in his tone.
Yoda, the hero that clings to the throne.
Yoda nods.
Becomes the next dragon. Just one thing keeps me from committing fully.
What is that, Master Yoda?
2 Sith there always are. An apprentice.
And a master.
Back at the parade, on the second float, Ben, garbed in Jedi dress robes, straight-shouldered and stiff, smiles and waves at no one. Nearby stands the General, a confident, strong figure either in his 50s or a very healthy 60s. He has the affable demeanor of a general who has either never seen full-scale war or has seen too many. The General wears a more colorful version of the Imperial uniform to come.
Jedi Kenobi.
It catches Ben off guard that the General is addressing him at all.
General, how do you do?
Have I ever told you the one about Marbella, the one-armed dog?
Actually, yes. I believe he raced in circles.
Oh, well, you couldn't humor an old man?
Apologies, General. I'll forget all your stories from now on.
Good man. Kenobi, I was told your master would be in attendance this morning. I was quite looking forward to the pleasure.
Some unforeseen matters have taken Master Yoda to the temple, I'm afraid.
Matters of state? You do know I have clothes, yes?
Of course, General. Matters of the Force. Didn't want to bore you. Your attitudes toward our
religion
practices are well known.
Just because I think there are more practical explanations for your powers than magic doesn't mean I don't respect you. That said, Jedi business has become my business after all, so I do well to stay abreast.
An enemy of the Jedi attacked the President last night.
Ben holds up a calming hand as the General starts to react.
He was dealt with summarily.
I still think this falls under matters of state, don't you?
Master Yoda wished to save it for a face-to-face.
The General grabs his hat.
You can tell me all about it on the way to see him.
You're not suggesting we leave the parade?
The General blinks wearily at Ben. He smacks his lips.
Yes, quite right. I'll just check in with the President.
Ben fumbles with a communicator apparatus in the sleeve of his robe.
Captain, the General and I are going to speak to Master Yoda about recent events. I assume you've got this under control.
White Sun darts in and trying to keep up with Amidala, but not be seen.
Yeah, about that.
What? Is something wrong?
Amidala lands atop a museum. She dismounts the bike and heads inside. Captain White Sun rolls her eyes. She lands. She passes R2.
Yeah, I see her.
She heads toward the museum.
Nothing I can't handle, Kenobi. Take the Force with you, or whatever.
Kenobi takes a breath.
May the Force be with you, Captain White Sun. Out.
Ben glances back at the General, who smiles wryly. Having overheard, they get up. Miles away, the parade is a centipede in the distance, the sunlight glinting off its structures and skyscrapers. 700 stories down. At the midpoint, streets, walkways, and bridges connect the buildings. The sparse daylight casts a dusky haze on the flying cars and floating vendors and platforms. One hovering sail barge, 70 meters long, holds the entire Midtown marketplace. Aboard, vendors of all manner of alien species bark at passers-by. A street urchin saunters through the crowd. He is 18 at the oldest, clothed in dirty rags, and his hair is long and messy. Handsome in a roguish way, his name is Anakin. He walks up to a Tadorian vendor selling Nerf jerky. The vendor flits to and fro on agitated wings.
Buzz off.
Excuse me?
I said buzz off. Whenever you lurk around here, I always end up low on inventory at the end of the day.
I do not like your implications.
Oh, did I imply something? I'm sorry.
Anakin perks up.
I meant to say it right out. You steal.
Anakin's smile falls.
That is a serious accusation.
You're talking, you're looking, but you're not buzzing.
Anakin makes a face that says, "Really, dude?" and waves his hand over the vendor's shoulder.
What was that?
Watto turns in the direction of the wave. Anakin snatches at one of the hanging stalactites of meat, but has some trouble removing it. The vendor turns back. Anakin's sleeve is caught on the hook. They lock eyes.
This isn't... I was just... Man, this is really on there.
A constable steps up behind Anakin, a clone in a blue uniform and a riot mask. He puts a hand on Anakin's shoulder.
Is there a problem?
Anakin closes his eyes in frustration.
No problem, officer. I was just...
Anakin does a flip out of his overcoat and past the vendor's booth.
Leaving!
Food scatters out of the coat and across the barge floor. The constable gives chase. Anakin dashes down the market. He weaves through the crowd, knocking some over in the process. A clone waiter tosses his tray into the air. Anakin catches it, then misses the tray's contents and hands it back to the waiter.
Sorry.
Anakin risks a glance. The constable is gaining. He runs faster. He comes to the edge of the barge. He steps onto the thin railing. He looks down. Miles of drop are down below, with no end in sight, and about 1 million air speeders worth of sky traffic between Anakin and the ground.
End of the line.
Anakin turns, wobbling but maintaining his balance. He shrugs and nods.
Why don't you come down here and talk about it?
It's a date. Meet at my place?
Anakin leans backward. The constable runs after him, arm outstretched, but is too late.
No!
Anakin falls back into traffic, flipping end over end as cars fly past. Drivers lean on their horns. He zips past them, almost getting hit several times.
Nice try.
He swims through the air. He pushes off speeders as they dart past. He latches onto the bumper of one for a moment, just long enough to leap onto another car as it passes. From his place on the trunk, Anakin smiles and waves up at the constable, who is fast becoming a speck in the distance. Anakin takes a worn, ratty piece of nerf jerky from his pocket. He takes a bite. His face falls. It tastes awful. Anakin turns toward the driver, a blue-skinned, black-haired alien with golden eyes named Theros, who stares back with terror. Anakin points.
Car!
The driver turns just in time to swerve out of the way of the oncoming vehicle. The driver looks back. Anakin hasn't moved.
So, where you heading?
Theros, confused, tries to think.
Frantosca?
I kind of wanted to check out the parade. Oh well.
Anakin peeks down at the traffic. He shakes his head to himself. He jumps off into the night. Meanwhile, in the shopping district, Maul, amazed, walks the streets. A Twi'lek clone rotates on a platform in a storefront, a living mannequin. She wears 2 control collars, one on each head tail. Maul steps onto the stage. The Bothan shopkeeper, resembling a lion in a leisure suit, runs forward to protest.
Sir? Sir? You can't be up there! Sir!
Maul murmurs into the Twi'lek's ear, waving his hand.
Updating firmware.
The Twi'lek leaps off the stage, her beautiful dress twirling with every move. She stares at her master. She strikes him in the throat. He falls over, choking. Maul smiles as every Twi'lek clone in the shop, each dressed to the nines, some in lingerie, surround them. They kick the choking shopkeeper on the ground. A human clone remains at her post. Maul leans forward. He murmurs into her ear. Maul points at a hollow projection across the street, a projection of the parade. Across town and 50 stories up is the Museum of Umate, a massive temple with thousands of tourists flowing through it. Out of the windows, the topmost floors of the galactic city. In an atrium 100 meters wide peaks the snow cap of a mountain. At its edge, monks hover, praying hands over the surface of the rock. Overhead curls toward the floor a gigantic ancient tree limb. Museum goers bustle about the spectacle. Amidala enters, 3PO at her side, and approaches the mountain and the tree with reverent awe.
3PO, what is this place?
This is Umate, the last remaining outcropping of natural stone on Coruscant. It is protected by the monks of the Flame of Umate, seen in a circle surrounding the rock.
They approach the tree. An iridescent rainbow moss coats its flesh. Gray-green fruit hangs from its highest branches. One hangs low enough to reach. 3PO interacts with a device on the wall.
This tree, nicknamed Oud, is the last native living flora on the whole of Coruscant.
Amidala reaches for a shimmering leaf of the tree.
It is cared for daily by over 100 workers, pruning and guiding its roots.
Quiet.
3PO shuts it. Amidala turns. Against the wall, a few feet away, leans Anakin. Visitors pass between as they talk, but the crowd noise diminishes in his presence.
You're not supposed to touch the tree, or the rocks. The monks pretty much the only ones that can commune with the plant's soul or whatever.
He takes a bite of a piece of fruit. She draws her hand back a little, and then sees what he's eating.
That's quite the specific fruit you're eating.
Anakin saunters over.
Well, not quite the specific craving. Legend had it, Oud's fruit gives wine instead of juice and grants the eater magic powers.
Can I try yours?
Get your own.
Fine.
Amidala loses her impulse control and grabs a fruit off the tree. An alarm blares. The lights go red. The monks stop chanting. The entire silent horde turn to Amidala. She tosses the fruit away. She spins back to Anakin. The alarm continues.
How did you...
They sell them in the gift shop.
Oh, I'm gonna kill you!
A large hand clasps her shoulder.
Petty theft and death threats.
They turn and see the clone constable. 3PO waddles over behind.
See here, you armor-clad idiot! Do you know who it is you're manhandling?
3PO, quiet! Look, officer, I'm sure there's some mistake.
I witnessed you stealing from the museum.
Anakin gets between them. The constable's helmet screen blinks with colored lights.
Look, man, she's a tourist. You know, I tricked her into setting off the alarm. She doesn't deserve...
You are on the wanted registry.
Run.
What?
Anakin dives through a window. Amidala gets to it just in time to see Anakin take off on her speeder. The constable is coming up.
3PO, roadblock!
3PO steps in the trooper's way.
Did you know, Constable, that this tree has a name?
Out of the way, droid, you're obstructing justice!
Actually, in accordance with statute 46257 of the Mechanized Code, droids with operational restraining bolts cannot be held liable for their actions, even when breaking human law.
Amidala clicks a button on her collar and jumps out.
Out of the way!
The constable pushes 3PO over.
No!
Outside, Amidala steals a speeder of her own, White Sun's. Anakin, impressed, smiles and zips off. She pursues with abandon. White Sun stares out the window, her jaw clenching and releasing. The constable jots angry notes. 3PO walks through them and peers down with them.
Wasn't that your speeder, Master White Sun?
You're supposed to keep her safe on her little excursions, 3PO.
Actually, I believe that's your job description, Master White Sun. I have to follow orders.
3PO taps his restraining bolt. The captain rolls her eyes and storms off. Back at the temple, Ben and the general enter the temple at the midway ship dock. Several Padawan, prepubescent Jedi squires run to them.
Jedi Kenobi!
Padawan, has Master Yoda arrived?
Yes, Jedi. He's been in session with the Shimmer Council since first light.
He's with the council.
The Padawan nods with reverence back at Ben. Ben starts to ask a follow-up, but his communicator beeps.
One moment.
Ben lifts his wrist. He seems grossly uncomfortable with the device, pushes a button or two, but the bleeping continues.
Wrist links, I just can't get the...
He hits another button and the bleeping ends. A hollow of White Sun's head and shoulders appear.
Captain White Sun.
Jedi, I've run into a bit of a snack.
Can it wait? The general and I have only just arrived at the temple.
Why did you leave the parade?
I may have let slip the prior night's incidents.
Well, this is a bit urgent and concerns similar matters.
Is the president in danger?
Not yet, that I know of.
That you lost her.
Among other things. We have a tracker on her, of course, but I need evac to get to her.
What?
I need a ride, Kenobi.
Ah, well.
I'm messaging you the coordinates to your map. The blue button. After I hang up.
White Sun disappears.
No, go on. I can babysit myself. I'm sure these young, what do you call them?
Padawan.
The general winces.
The Padawan can show me around until your master is free and you return. See to your charge.
Apologies, General. I'll be back as soon as able.
The general salutes casually. Kenobi heads back to his vehicle. With good humor, the general turns to the Padawan.
Now, who of you can show a warhorse to the latrine?
The Padawan smile and lead on. At a sketchy shipping dock called Terminal 24, Anakin turns and heads into a passage that spills onto a dark tunnel. The sun hasn't reached this far in a millennia, so it's constantly night. The passage spills into a bottomless pit called the Underworld Portal, the entrance to Coruscant's underground. Anakin flies down a few levels before entering 1414. There is a massive second world below Coruscant streets, even poorer and more crime-ridden than the perpetual night of the streets above. Anakin pulls into a shantytown between two abandoned structures. Stray, mutated animals and homeless aliens scatter. Amidala watches him land under the tent of Kloss. She lands, gets off her speeder, and stomps after him. She enters a collection of abandoned rags in the shape of an enormous mansion, adorned with endless salvaged treasure like an old Persian market. Amidala is awestruck.
This
Pretty sweet, right?
He hands her a teacup, brimming with an already hot liquid. She sniffs it, her eyelids fluttering.
What is all this?
This is home. Anyway, I don't have much, so I take a lot.
This is all stolen?
Only what I couldn't buy, so, everything. Anyway, nothing anybody needed.
It's beautiful.
Anakin looks at her anew.
What's your name?
Tira?
Pretty name. Anakin.
They lock eyes.
So Anakin, where are your parents?
Anakin's face turns morose. He sees red. Anakin shakes it off.
I didn't mean to...
No. It's all right. I didn't know them. Never met them. I've been on the streets as long as I can remember.
I can relate. I was raised more by the handmaiden.
Amidala stops. She's dressed as a handmaiden.
The other handmaidens, I mean. The Baron's daughter that my mom takes care of is a royal brat, sucks up my parents' time. Really, she's worthless. But they know her better than they know me.
Anakin smirks. He's got her number.
Sounds rough. But you're in a palace, though, huh?
She breaks the mood, smiles, and lifts her arms to Anakin's pavilion.
Well, it's not all this.
Well, we can't all be rich. Want to see something cool, Tira?
Meanwhile, back at the parade, Corday as the president waves as the parade makes its way down to the middle levels of the city, where the light looks like early evening. A clone holds her train. She drops it.
Updating firmware.
She walks downstairs to the back of the float, where the levitation and propulsion systems pulse and churn with energy. Something occurs on her blank face. She turns. At the next float, another clone of her model turns a knob on the levitation engines. They lock eyes. Our clone turns back to the systems and turns the knobs all the way up. A loud humming begins.
Hey!
The clone pivots. A masked Azure guard approaches.
What are you doing? Turn those back down.
The clone turns, its face a blank mask.
Updating firmware.
Across town in sky traffic, Ben drives a convertible airspeeder, a Corellian Corvette. White Sun rides shotgun, and 3PO sits in the back seat.
All right, now that we've all together, 3PO, do you have the coordinates for the President's tracker?
Yes, Master Kenobi. After some erratic movement, they appear to have settled at 0.0.1 north by 0.0.0 south by 50.0.5 elevation.
Ben squints in thought.
What? I was just there!
Ben cuts the wheel sharply. We don't follow him because we track to Pharos' car in background. A loud thud shakes the whole vehicle. Pharos, enraged, turns around. Instead of Anakin, he finds the twisted body of the Azure Guard on the hood of its trunk. At the peak of the Jedi Temple spire, on the very tip of the building's antenna, a minuscule crow's nest reveals itself. The surrounding buildings dwarf the temple and form an arc around it. Anakin and Amidala perch atop the edge of the crow's nest. R2, from Amidala's speeder, casts a large color view of the parade miles up onto the wall of buildings. A blanket draped over their shoulders, and the jets from the speeder's engine keep them warm. Amidala doesn't seem to be enjoying the show. She fidgets and shifts in her seat, trying to maintain purchase.
Quit moving, you weirdo.
I'm weird. Do you know how high up we are? There's no room to sit up here.
There's plenty of room if you stop squirming like a freak.
I keep feeling like I'm sliding down. Why aren't you sliding?
Because I'm not fidgeting.
He puts his arm around her. She stops slipping. She looks uncomfortably comfortable next to him.
Look, I got you. Now, look.
She drags her eyes away from his grip on her shoulder and averts his gaze to follow the line of his finger up to the parade projection.
Oh, it is beautiful, isn't it?
I sliced the feed from the museum and piped it into your R2. Bet you've never seen a parade from this angle, huh?
You could say that.
There's something about a screen. When you're in the thick of it, you can't really see the big picture.
I don't know. Big picture's not detailed. We can see the floats well and good, but who are the people?
Just a bunch of triple zeros. You're not missing much.
Triple...
Coruscant trash, with delusions of snobbery. The locals mostly aren't wearing the crap I steal from them.
Ah, I see.
So that's how I knew you were a tourist.
How's that?
You were interesting.
Anakin smiles like a charismatic demon. Tira steals a glance at his lips. They move a little closer to one another. A car horn blares behind them.
Madam President!
Amidala slides off the perch. She yelps. Anakin plucks up her wrist. Amidala shuts her eyes in shame and a fear of heights.
What, son? I'm gonna court-martial you!
Why? For saving you from a huge mistake.
Amidala climbs back onto their spot with Anakin's help.
For nearly killing me!
So, someone would have caught you if Early Boy over there hadn't. I'm a Jedi.
Ben waves from the driver's seat.
Wait, who the hell are you people? Madam President? Mistake? I am not oily.
A massive explosion echoes loudly off the walls of buildings, but the explosion isn't where they are. They turn. Fire and carnage reflect on their faces. The chaos is on the projection. And at this moment, we will take our second 10-minute intermission. Thank you.